I never meant for it to happen this way. That's what I kept telling myself, but the truth was I'd been standing on this fault line for months, waiting for the ground to split beneath me. And now it finally had. I sat on the edge of our neatly made bed, staring at the pregnancy test in my hands, my fingers trembling. 2 pink lines. Positive. A mixture of emotions swirled inside me. Excitement, fear, guilt. But mostly fear. Not because I wasn't ready for a baby, but because I had no idea how I was going to explain this to my husband. Nathan had always wanted kids, but the doctors had told us it wouldn't be easy. Years of disappointment had eroded his hope, and at some point, he simply stopped talking about it. I knew he still wanted to be a father. He just couldn't handle another letdown. But this wasn't supposed to happen. And not with him. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push away the memories of the nights spent tangled in someone else's arms. A man who had reminded me what it felt like to be wanted, desired, seen. A man who wasn't my husband. Tyler. The name alone sent a shiver through me. Equal parts thrill and dread. He was everything Nathan wasn't, spontaneous, reckless, passionate. He made me feel alive in ways I hadn't felt in years. But he wasn't ready for a child. And he never would be. I knew the moment I told him he'd disappear. I could already picture the panic in his dark eyes, the excuses, the distance. I couldn't risk it. So there was only one option. Nathan would believe this baby was his. I had already crafted the story in my mind. Maybe it was a miracle, a 1 in a million chance, something that defied the odds. People had those stories all the time, didn't they? Unexpected pregnancies. Maybe he'd even be excited, grateful, renewed with purpose. And if he ever had doubts, well, I knew exactly how to quiet them. I had spent years perfecting the art of gaslighting, gently steering our conversations whenever he questioned something. A well-placed sigh, a quiet shake of the head, a wounded expression. He always backed down. He loved me too much to push. This time wouldn't be any different. Or so I thought. I couldn't tell him right away. I needed to process it first. To prepare. But I made a mistake. I told my mother. And I didn't realize he was listening. I had stepped into the living room that morning, still in my robe, my phone pressed to my ear as my mother sighed on the other end. "Lauren, this is dangerous," she warned. "If Nathan ever finds out." "He won't," I interrupted, pacing. "I'll tell him it's his. He's wanted a baby forever. He won't question it." Silence hung between us before she spoke again. "And Tyler?" "He's not ready," I whispered. "And if he knew, he might leave me." I swallowed hard. "I can't lose him, Mom." I heard movement upstairs, a shift in the floorboards. My breath caught in my throat. Had Nathan been up there the whole time? A slow, creeping dread settled over me as I forced myself to remain calm. He would have come downstairs if he'd heard anything. He would have confronted me, right? I quickly ended the call and went about my day as if nothing had happened. But an uneasiness settled deep inside me. The next day, Nathan was gone. No warning. No note. Just an empty closet, a missing suitcase, and the suffocating quiet of a house that no longer felt like a home. Panic clawed at my chest as I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Nothing. And then the final blow. A text from an unknown number. "I thought you should know what your husband did." Attached was a photo of the pregnancy test. The same one I had thrown in the trash. My stomach lurched. I called the number back, my hands shaking. A woman answered. And what she said next made my blood run cold. "Lauren," she murmured, her voice laced with quiet devastation. "We need to talk. Because my husband might not be the only man you've been lying to." My fingers tightened around my phone as I sat frozen on the couch, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. "My husband might not be the only man you've been lying to." The woman's voice still echoed in my mind. A quiet accusation laced with something I couldn't quite place. Grief? Rage? I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "Who is this?" I finally managed to ask, though I already had a sinking feeling I knew. There was a pause on the other end, then a sharp inhale. "Julia." Another pause. "Tyler's wife." I shot up from the couch so fast the blood drained from my head, leaving me dizzy. My heart pounded in my ears. Tyler's wife. I knew he was married, of course. That had always been part of the thrill. The stolen moments, the hidden glances, the whispered promises. But she wasn't supposed to know. How does she know? My mind raced for answers, for a way out of this, but I had nothing. "You're quiet," Julia said, her tone eerily calm. "I take it you weren't expecting this call?" "Listen," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what you think you know, but—" "Don't," she cut me off sharply. "Don't insult me by pretending. I know everything, Lauren. About you and my husband. About how long it's been going on." I pressed a hand against my forehead, trying to steady my breathing. "How?" It was all I could say. She let out a hollow laugh. "You think you were careful? You think Tyler was? He got sloppy. He left his phone unlocked one night. I saw the messages. The photos. You made sure he had plenty of those, didn't you?" A sick feeling crawled up my spine. She sighed, the sound heavy with something I didn't quite understand. "But here's the thing, Lauren. I could have confronted him. I could have left. I almost did." A pause. "Until your husband called me first." The room seemed to tilt. "Nathan called you?" My voice came out as a breathless whisper. "Yes," she confirmed. "After he found your little secret. After he packed his things and left you." I gripped the armrest of the couch, my nails digging into the fabric. My world was spinning out of control, slipping through my fingers. What did he tell you?" "That he found the pregnancy test," she said flatly. "That you two hadn't been able to conceive. That he had secretly gotten a vasectomy years ago." A cold chill spread through my veins. Vasectomy. The word hit me like a bullet. "No," I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. "That's not possible. He wouldn't do that. Not without telling me." But the moment the words left my mouth, I knew I was wrong. Nathan would do that. He had never been the type to make a scene, to fight or lash out when he was hurting. Instead, he pulled away. He bottled it up. If he had decided that trying for a baby was too painful, if he had secretly taken matters into his own hands, I would never have known. And now he knew. Oh God. Julia's voice pulled me back to reality. "So, tell me, Lauren. How exactly were you planning to explain this, baby?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in my life, I had nothing. "Where is he?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Julia admitted. "He didn't tell me where he was going. Just that he wanted you to suffer for this." She paused. "And I think he's getting his wish." I squeezed my eyes shut. I wanted to scream, to break something, to do something. But all I could do was sit there, my body numb with shock. Nathan was gone. He had found out the truth, and instead of confronting me, he had disappeared. I had underestimated him. I had assumed he would believe whatever story I fed him. I had been so wrong. And now Julia knew everything too. My mind spun with possibilities. Was she calling to warn me? To threaten me? To destroy me? As if reading my thoughts, she let out a quiet sigh. "I'm not calling to start a war, Lauren. I just needed you to know that you're not as clever as you think." A lump formed in my throat. "So what happens now?" Another pause. Then softly, "That depends on you." Click. The line went dead. The silence in the house felt suffocating. Nathan's absence had left a gaping hole. One I hadn't truly felt until this moment. I wandered through the rooms as if expecting to find him there, to find some evidence that he hadn't really left me. But there was nothing. His clothes were gone. His shoes, his toothbrush, the framed wedding photo that had sat on his nightstand for years. Gone. It hit me then. He wasn't coming back. And I had no one to blame but myself. I sank onto the bed, my hand drifting to my stomach. The baby. Tyler's baby. Nathan had left me. Julia had found out the truth. Tyler. God, what would Tyler do? My whole life was crumbling around me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But I wasn't done yet. If Nathan thought he could just disappear, he was wrong. I would find him. I would fix this. I had to. I sat in the silence of my bedroom, the weight of everything suffocating me. My husband was gone. The walls of our perfect life were caving in around me, and I had no one to blame but myself. Nathan wasn't answering his phone. His clothes, his essentials, even the framed wedding photo from his nightstand, gone. Panic gnawed at the edges of my mind. He wasn't the kind of man to make rash decisions. He wasn't impulsive, wasn't the type to storm out in anger. If Nathan left, it meant he had already decided he was done. And that thought terrified me. I needed to fix this. I needed to find him. But first, I needed to deal with the other storm heading my way. I drove to Tyler's office, my heart slamming against my ribs with every mile. He was expecting me. I had texted him earlier with a simple message. We need to talk. Now. He called within seconds, his voice laced with annoyance. Lauren, I'm busy. It's important. Sigh. Then fine. My office. 20 minutes. So here I was gripping the steering wheel with clammy hands, trying to prepare myself for what I had to tell him. When I walked into his sleek corner office, Tyler was leaning against his desk, arms crossed, eyes sharp. This better be good, he said, closing the door behind me. I hesitated for only a moment before I spoke the words that would change everything. I'm pregnant. Tyler blinked. His entire posture stiffened, his mouth slightly open as if he misheard me. You're what? You heard me. I forced myself to keep my voice steady, but inside I was unraveling. A slow exhale. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his expression unreadable. And you're sure it's? I cut him off before he could finish. It's yours, Tyler. There's no question. He let out a low, humorless laugh. You expect me to just take your word for it? I narrowed my eyes. Yes. He shook his head, shoving his hands into his pockets as he paced the room. This is a nightmare, he muttered. My stomach twisted. Excuse me. Tyler stopped pacing and turned to me, his jaw clenched. Lauren, you knew what this was. We had fun, but that's all it was supposed to be. A baby? That wasn't part of the deal. Anger flared in my chest. This isn't a business transaction, Tyler. This is a child. He scoffed, rubbing his temple like I was some kind of problem he needed to solve. And what do you expect me to do? Leave my wife? Build a nursery? Be a father? The last word dripped with disbelief, and I suddenly saw Tyler in a way I never had before. He wasn't excited. He wasn't concerned. He was trapped. I had been a fool. For months I had told myself he was different. That what we had was real. That maybe, just maybe, he felt the same way about me that I felt about him. But he didn't. I swallowed hard. So what? You just walk away. Tyler's jaw flexed. You said it yourself, Lauren. Your husband wants a kid. You already had your plan, didn't you? Tell him it's his. Move on with your life. I stared at him, the full weight of my mistake settling into my bones. I loved him. Or at least I thought I did. And yet, in this moment I had never felt more alone. Tyler moved toward the door, opening it. This conversation is over. Tyler. Fix this, Lauren. His voice was cold, detached. Or I will. The threat was unmistakable. I walked out of his office feeling like I had been gutted. I had thought losing Nathan was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong that I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, my mind racing. Nathan knew. Julia knew. And now, Tyler had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with me or this baby. I was running out of time. And then my phone buzzed. Nathan. My heart jumped into my throat as I fumbled to answer. Nathan. His voice was quiet, measured. We need to talk. Relief flooded me. Maybe I could still fix this. Yes. Yes, we do. Where are you? A pause. Then, home. I gripped the wheel. He came back. I'm on my way, I said quickly, turning my car around. I sped home, my hands shaking the entire way. I was going to fix this. I had to. But when I pulled into the driveway and saw Nathan standing on the porch, I knew immediately that I was too late. His face was unreadable, his eyes cold, and in his hand, a manila envelope. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as I stepped out of the car. What's that? I asked hesitantly. He tossed it onto the porch at my feet. Read it. Dread clawed at my throat as I bent down, picking up the envelope with unsteady hands. I opened it and pulled out the contents. Photos. Dozens of them. Me. With Tyler. In parking lots. In hotel lobbies. Kissing. Holding hands. Nathan had known before I even suspected. I looked up at him, my breath caught in my lungs. Nathan, Don't, he cut me off. His voice was calm, steady. but I could see the fury beneath the surface. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Panic surged through me. No. Please. We can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, he said flatly. I had a lawyer draw up the divorce papers this morning. The world tilted. Nathan, please. You lied to me. You cheated on me. And you tried to pin another man's baby on me. His voice was ice. The only reason I'm even telling you this in person is because I want to make sure you understand something. I am done with you. Tears blurred my vision as I reached for him. Nathan. He stepped back. Pack your things, Lauren. And then he turned and walked inside, leaving me standing there, alone, with nothing that I stood frozen on the front porch, the cold night air biting at my skin, but it was nothing compared to the ice spreading through my veins. Nathan was gone. Not physically. He was inside our house, the house we had built together, the one I had never once considered would no longer be ours. But he had made it clear. I was no longer welcome inside it. I looked down at the envelope in my trembling hands, the photos staring back at me like ghosts of my worst mistakes. Me with Tyler. Kissing. Laughing. Wrapped up in each other like we were the only two people in the world. Someone had followed me. Someone had documented it all. And Nathan had seen everything. I wanted to scream. To cry. To undo it all. Instead, I clenched my jaw, pushing the lump in my throat down, and walked to the front door. I knocked softly, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he would let me inside. Nothing. I knocked again. Nathan, please. Silence. I twisted the doorknob. Locked. The weight of it hit me then. He really meant it. He wanted me out of his life. Out of our home. I banged on the door harder this time. Nathan, please let me in. We need to talk. No answer. I pressed my forehead against the wood, squeezing my eyes shut. I had to try something. Anything. I softened my voice, hoping maybe he would hear the desperation in it. Nathan, I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But we've been together for too long to throw it all away like this. Still nothing. Nathan. I yelled now, frustration boiling over. I am still your wife. You can't just lock me out like I'm some stranger. A few seconds passed before I heard the deadbolt turn. The door swung open and there he was. But the man standing in front of me wasn't my Nathan. His expression was blank, his eyes dark, as if whatever love he had once held for me had been drained completely. You were my wife, he said. Not anymore. My stomach dropped. You need to leave, Lauren. I shook my head, gripping the doorframe. I'm not leaving. This is our house. Nathan's lips curled into something that almost looked like amusement. Our house? You don't have a house anymore. You don't have a marriage anymore. You don't have me anymore. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Nathan, please don't do this. I made a mistake. He let out a humorless laugh. A mistake. His jaw clenched. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash. A mistake is leaving your phone at a restaurant. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You spent months sneaking around with another man. You tried to pin his baby on me. That's not a mistake, Lauren. That's a choice. I opened my mouth to argue, but I had nothing. Because he was right. I had made my choices. And now I was paying the price for them. Nathan stepped back inside, his hand tightening on the door. If you don't leave now, I'll call the cops. My heart slammed against my ribs. You wouldn't. His eyes stayed locked on mine, and I realized then he absolutely would. I had pushed him too far. I had lost him that I don't remember getting back into my car. I don't remember driving away, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. All I remember is the crushing silence, the realization that I had nowhere to go. My parents lived 2 states away, and after the phone call with my mother, I knew I couldn't call her. I could already hear her disappointment, the way she'd sigh and say, I told you this would happen. I couldn't go to Tyler either. He had already made it clear I was on my own. Tears blurred my vision as I pulled into an empty parking lot near a motel. I had no plan. No idea what to do next. I gripped my phone in my shaking hands, and before I could stop myself, I called the only person I had left. Julia. The phone rang once. Twice. Then she picked up. I swallowed hard. My voice broke. I need to talk to you. Silence. Then finally she spoke. Good. Because I have something to tell you too. We met an hour later in a quiet diner on the edge of town. Julia sat across from me, her expression unreadable as she sipped her coffee. I had expected anger, hatred, maybe even a slap across the face. But what I got instead was worse. Pity. She placed her cup down and folded her hands on the table. I'm going to ask you one question, Lauren, she said. And I want you to think very carefully before you answer. I swallowed, nodding. She leaned in slightly, her green eyes locking onto mine. Are you sure Tyler is the father of your baby? I blinked. What? Her lips pressed together, and for the first time, I noticed the exhaustion in her face, the dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired. She exhaled sharply. Because I just got back from an appointment with my OB/GYN. She paused, letting her words settle. And I'm pregnant too. The world tilted. My breath hitched. What? And the timeline doesn't add up, Lauren. Her voice was eerily calm. If I'm pregnant, so are you. Which means Tyler has been sleeping with both of us at the same time. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I thought I was the only one, Julia murmured, shaking her head. I thought you were the only one. But no. There's someone else. She stared at me, her gaze sharp and cutting. And I think you know exactly who it is. My blood ran cold. Because deep down, I did. The photos. The secret meetings. The person who had been watching me. It was Nathan. And suddenly I realized, this wasn't just revenge. This was his way of destroying me completely. And I had walked right into it. I stared at Julia, my mind refusing to process what she had just said. She was pregnant. Tyler had been sleeping with both of us. And someone else knew everything. My stomach twisted violently. The walls of the tiny diner suddenly felt too close, the air thick and suffocating. I shook my head, forcing out a bitter laugh. No, that doesn't make sense. Tyler wouldn't. Julia raised an eyebrow, cutting me off. Wouldn't what? Cheat on me? Sleep with multiple women? Lie. She gave a humorless chuckle, leaning back in her seat. Lauren, do you even hear yourself? I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. Because she was right. Tyler would do that. Did do that. He had done it to her with me. Why had I ever thought I was special? I felt sick. Julia sighed, shaking her head. You really thought you were the only one, didn't you? I swallowed the lump in my throat, my hands gripping my lap so tightly my nails dug into my skin. How did you even find out? She slid a piece of paper across the table. I hesitated before picking it up. A printed email. My eyes skimmed over the words, my pulse hammering in my ears. From Anonymous. To Julia Cooper. Subject. Your husband. You don't know me, but you deserve to know the truth. Tyler has been lying to you. He's been sleeping with Lauren for months, and she's not the only one. There's someone else. If you don't believe me, check his financials. You'll find proof in the hotel bookings, the expensive gifts, the secret dinners. He's not just cheating on you. He's playing all of you. The words blurred as my vision swam. My hands trembled. Anonymous. Someone had sent this to Julia. Someone who knew. I forced myself to look up at her. Who sent this? Julia exhaled sharply. I don't know. But I took their advice. A sinking feeling settled in my gut. She reached into her purse and pulled out another envelope. I pulled our credit card statements, she continued, sliding them toward me. You should recognize some of these charges. I hesitated before flipping through the pages. Hotel receipts. Restaurant bills. Boutique charges. They weren't just ours. My stomach dropped as I saw charges for places I had never been. Hotels I had never checked into. Tyler has another mistress, Julia murmured, watching me carefully. I shook my head in disbelief. No, that can't be right. But the numbers didn't lie. Tyler wasn't just cheating on his wife. He wasn't just cheating with me. There was someone else. That I slumped back in my seat, pressing my hands against my temples. My world was unraveling faster than I could keep up with. Nathan had left me. Tyler had abandoned me. And now, I wasn't even sure if my baby was the only one he had fathered. My voice was hoarse when I finally spoke. The email. You really don't know who sent it? Julia hesitated. Then slowly she said, I have a theory. I looked up at her, heart pounding. Who? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her purse again and pulled out a small stack of photos. My stomach twisted the moment I saw them, because I recognized them. They were the same ones Nathan had given me. Photos of me and Tyler. My head snapped up, my breathing uneven. Where did you get these? Julia's lips pressed together. They were left in my mailbox this morning. No note. Just the envelope. A cold chill ran down my spine. Someone had been watching me. Watching us. Someone who had been following me for months. Documenting every lie, every stolen moment. Nathan. It had to be him. But why would he send them to Julia? Why would he tell her about the other woman? My blood ran cold. Unless he knew who she was. I swallowed hard, my fingers gripping the edges of the photos. My voice was barely above a whisper. Nathan knew about Tyler and me before I even suspected. He had someone watching. Someone taking these pictures. Julia nodded. Whoever that person was, they know more than we do. I shook my head. No. I need to find out who the other woman is. I reached for my phone, my hands shaking as I pulled up my text messages. Tyler hadn't responded to any of my calls since our conversation earlier. I wasn't going to give him a choice this time. I typed out a message, my fingers tapping the screen furiously. I know about the other woman. Meet me at the Hyatt in an hour. If you don't, I'm telling Julia everything. I hit send and waited. Minutes passed. Then, 3 dots appeared. He was typing. I held my breath. Then the message came. I can't meet you. But you don't need to look for her. She's already looking for you. I stared at the message on my phone, my fingers gripping the device so tightly my knuckles turned white. She's already looking for you. A shiver crawled up my spine. I looked up at Julia, my throat dry. Tyler won't meet me. He says. She's already looking for me. Julia's expression darkened. Who is she, Lauren? I shook my head, my pulse pounding. I don't know. But that was a lie. I had a feeling. And if I was right, then this wasn't just about Tyler's affairs anymore. It was about revenge. Julia and I sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the diner's cheap neon lights buzzing overhead. Neither of us spoke, but I could tell we were both thinking the same thing. Someone had been watching us. Someone had been collecting proof. And now someone was coming for me. Julia exhaled, shaking her head. I don't like this. I forced myself to keep my voice steady. Neither do I. I needed answers. And I knew exactly where to start. I stepped outside the diner, my fingers cold as I dialed Tyler's number. The phone rang once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Damn it. I hissed, pacing back and forth. I needed to get to him before whoever she was did. I was about to try calling again when my phone buzzed with a different number. I hesitated before answering. Hello. There was silence on the other end. Then, you thought you were the only one? The voice was female. Calm. Too calm. A chill slithered down my spine. Who is this? A quiet chuckle. I guess you could call me the one who got here first. My stomach twisted. What do you want? A pause. Then softly. To watch you lose everything the way I did. The line went dead and I rushed back into the diner, my hands shaking as I slid into the booth across from Julia. She frowned. What happened? I swallowed hard. Someone just called me. A woman, she said. She wants to watch me lose everything. Julia's expression didn't change, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. And you don't know who she is? I hesitated. I think she's the other woman. The one Tyler's been seeing. The one who wasn't me. The one who had been watching from the shadows. Julia was quiet for a long moment. Then, she pulled her phone from her purse and began typing something. What are you doing? I asked. Running a background check on Tyler, she said flatly. If he's been paying for hotels and gifts for someone else, I want to know who she is. A lump formed in my throat. What if it's someone we already know? Julia's fingers paused over her phone screen. Then her eyes met mine. I guess we're about to find out. 30 minutes later, Julia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face unreadable as she read the report. Then she slowly set the phone down. Lauren, she said carefully. I swallowed hard. What? She turned the screen toward me. My breath caught in my throat, because there, in black and white, was the name of the woman Tyler had been secretly paying for. Rachel Evans. The blood drained from my face. I knew that name. I knew her. Because she wasn't just some random mistress. She was Nathan's ex-fiancée. Everything snapped into focus in an instant. Nathan had known about Tyler and me for months. Someone had been following me, watching, collecting evidence. And now Rachel was back in the picture. I felt my entire world tilt. This wasn't just a cheating scandal. This was a setup, a game. And I was the one who had been played. Rachel Evans. The name burned itself into my mind, my pulse hammering in my ears. Nathan's ex-fiancée. The woman he was supposed to marry before I came into the picture. The woman he never talked about except in passing. Always careful, always distant. I had stolen Nathan from her. And now after all these years she was back. I felt sick. Julia was watching me closely, her fingers drumming against the diner table. "Lauren," she said slowly. "You know her, don't you?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "Who is she?" I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to lie, to protect myself. But what was the point? Nathan already knew the truth. My marriage was over. My affair with Tyler had blown up in my face. The life I had built was crumbling beneath me. There was nothing left to protect. I exhaled shakily, running a hand through my hair. Rachel is Nathan's ex. They were engaged years ago. And then, you happened, Julia finished flatly. I nodded, unable to meet her eyes. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then, "Jesus Christ," Julia muttered, shaking her head. "So this isn't just about Tyler. It's about you." I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. "I don't understand. Why now? Why would she come back after all these years?" Julia gave me a pointed look. "Lauren, think about it." I did think about it. And the answer hit me like a freight train. Nathan. Rachel hadn't just come back. She had been invited back. My stomach twisted. Nathan must have found her. He must have. Julia cut me off. Not just found her. Recruited her. The weight of it settled over me. Heavy and suffocating. Nathan had known about my affair before I even suspected. He had been gathering evidence, waiting, playing the long game. And now Rachel was in the picture. For what? To destroy me? I felt like I was going to be sick. I shoved my chair back, standing up so fast the legs screeched against the diner floor. "I have to find Nathan." Julia frowned. "And say what?" "Beg." I turned to her, my chest heaving. "I don't know. But I can't just sit here and wait for him to ruin me. I need to talk to him." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Lauren, he doesn't want to talk to you." "I don't care," I snapped. "I have to try." Without another word, I grabbed my coat and stormed out of the diner. Nathan's car was in the driveway when I pulled up to the house. My heart slammed against my ribs. I took a deep breath, forcing down the panic rising in my throat. I stepped out of the car, my heels clicking against the pavement. Nathan was inside, waiting. I made my way up the porch, my hands shaking as I knocked on the door. Silence. I knocked again, harder this time. "Nathan, open the door." Nothing. My pulse pounded. "Nathan." Then finally, the door swung open. And there he was. But he wasn't alone. Rachel stood beside him, smiling. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Hello, Lauren," she said sweetly, tilting her head. "It's been a while." I couldn't speak. Nathan crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "What do you want?" My mouth opened and closed. I couldn't form words. My gaze flicked back to Rachel. Why was she here? What the hell was going on? I forced myself to look at Nathan. "We need to talk." He raised an eyebrow. "Now you want to talk?" My voice caught. "Nathan, please. I know I hurt you, but..." His expression darkened. "But what, Lauren? You thought I'd just let it go? Let you humiliate me and move on with your life?" I swallowed hard. "No. You just what?" His voice was sharp, cutting. "Thought I'd be too weak to fight back?" I stared at him, my breath shallow. "Nathan, please. I'm pregnant." Rachel let out a quiet laugh. "We know." A chill ran down my spine. Nathan's eyes gleamed with something dangerous. I know everything, Lauren. I shook my head. What do you mean? Rachel stepped forward, her smile widening. You really think you were the only one with secrets? My heart stopped. Nathan exhaled, rubbing his jaw. You didn't just destroy our marriage, Lauren. You made me rethink everything. His lips curled. And Rachel helped me see the truth. I stared at him, my hands shaking. What truth? Nathan's gaze burned into me. That I never really loved you. The world tilted. I felt my knees go weak, my breath catching in my throat. Nathan stepped back, motioning toward Rachel. And now, he murmured, I have everything I lost. I took a step back, my chest tightening. You're back together? Rachel's smile was almost pitying. Oh, sweetheart. We never really ended things. I couldn't breathe. Nathan tilted his head. Hurts, doesn't it? Tears burned behind my eyes. You're lying. But I knew he wasn't. The past few months flashed before me. The distance, the coldness, the way he had never fought back. Never screamed at me the way I expected him to when he found out about my affair. Because he had been planning this. He wanted me to suffer. Nathan leaned in. His voice barely above a whisper. Now get off my porch. I stared at him, my whole body shaking. And then slowly I turned and walked away. Everything I had done had finally come back to destroy me. And Nathan had made sure I felt every second of it. I barely remembered the drive away from our house, Nathan's house now. My hands trembled against the wheel, my mind spinning in a relentless cycle of disbelief, rage and devastation. Nathan and Rachel. They were back together. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. How? How had this happened? How had I been so blind? Nathan had never fought for me, never yelled, never pleaded when I betrayed him. Because he hadn't needed to. Because he had been waiting for the perfect moment to bury me. And he had done it with the one person who wanted to see me suffer just as much as he did. Rachel. She had smiled at me, so damn smug, standing beside Nathan like she had never left. Like she had always been waiting to take back what was hers. And now she had. I slammed my foot on the gas, speeding down the empty roads, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. This wasn't over. I wouldn't let it be over that I didn't go to a motel. I didn't go to my mother's house. I went to Tyler. By the time I reached his condo, my anger had boiled over into something dangerous. I parked recklessly, barely remembering to kill the engine before I climbed out and stormed up to his door. I pounded on it, my heart slamming against my ribs. Tyler, open the damn door. Nothing. I banged on it again. Tyler. Still nothing. I wasn't in the mood for games. I reached for my phone, pulling up his number and calling him. It rang. Then, straight to voicemail. I gritted my teeth, my breath coming in short, furious bursts. I knew he was inside. I wasn't leaving. I stepped back, inhaling sharply before I kicked the door. Hard. The sound cracked through the empty hallway, but I didn't care. Open the damn door, Tyler. Finally, I heard movement inside. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open. Tyler stood there shirtless, his hair a mess like he had just woken up. His eyes were cold, irritated. What the hell is wrong with you? He muttered. I shoved past him, forcing my way inside. You knew, I hissed. He turned to face me, rubbing his face tiredly. Lauren, it's late. I don't have time for this. You knew. I cut him off, my voice sharp, shaking. You knew about Rachel. You knew Nathan was setting me up. Tyler's face darkened. Bingo. I laughed, shaking my head. Of course you knew. I was just a distraction, wasn't I? Tyler exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. Lauren, you need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I snapped. How long have you known? How long have you been playing me, too? He shook his head, stepping back. It wasn't like that. Bullshit. I barked. You and Nathan, you were friends once. You think I don't remember that? How long has he had you on a leash? Tyler's jaw clenched. I laughed again, hollow and bitter. So what? He knew I would cheat? He knew I'd be stupid enough to run to you. Tyler didn't answer. I took a step closer, my voice lowering into something venomous. Or was it your idea? Did you help him plan this? Tyler's lips parted slightly, his shoulders stiffening. That was all I needed to see. He had known. He had always known. I let out a sharp breath, my heart shattering all over again. I loved you, you know that? Tyler sighed, running a hand through his hair. Lauren. You used me, I whispered. His expression flickered with something. Regret? Too late. I stepped back, shaking my head. I hope you and Nathan have a good laugh about this, I muttered, heading for the door. I reached for the doorknob, but before I could yank it open, Tyler's voice stopped me. You think you were the only one being played? I froze. Slowly I turned around. Tyler's expression was unreadable now, his blue eyes sharp. You think Nathan won? He scoffed. He's just as much of an idiot as you are. I narrowed my eyes. What the hell are you talking about? He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. Nathan thinks he's in control. That he beat you. That he's got his perfect little revenge. But he's wrong. I swallowed hard. Why? Tyler exhaled, shaking his head. Because Rachel's not just here for you. A sick feeling slithered up my spine. Tyler's lips curled into something dark. She's here for him. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. You're lying, I whispered. Tyler smirked. Am I? I clenched my fists. Nathan hates me. He doesn't want revenge on Rachel. Tyler tilted his head. And yet, she's back in his bed, isn't she? My blood ran cold. Rachel had never forgiven me. She had never moved on. She had never stopped waiting. And now she had Nathan exactly where she wanted him. I took an unsteady step back, my heart racing. What is she planning? Tyler shrugged. Guess you'll have to find out. I turned on my heel, throwing the door open and rushing back to my car. This wasn't over. Not even close. That I drove without thinking, my mind a storm of rage, panic, and something far worse, fear. Rachel wasn't here for me. She was here for Nathan. I had spent the past few days believing I was the one being destroyed, that Nathan had orchestrated everything to bring me to my knees. And maybe he had. But Rachel had been playing her own game. And if I knew anything about her, it was this: Rachel didn't just want revenge. She wanted complete annihilation. I had to stop her. But as I pulled up to the house, our house, something inside me twisted violently. Because I wasn't sure I wanted to. The house was dark except for the faint glow of a single light in the living room. Nathan was home. And I was willing to bet Rachel was too. I hesitated, gripping the steering wheel. What am I even doing? Nathan hated me. He had made that clear. So why was I about to warn him? He had been cruel. He had set me up, humiliated me, kicked me out of our home, left me stranded and alone. He had orchestrated my downfall with an almost surgical precision. Why should I stop Rachel from doing the same thing to him? I stared at the house, my heart pounding. And then I remembered. Nathan had been in love with Rachel once. Deeply, desperately in love with her. Before I came into the picture, they had been perfect together. Until I ruined it. I had never asked Nathan about the details. Never wanted to know how much he had hurt when Rachel left him. Because I knew she had broken him. I had seen it in the way he had always held a part of himself back with me. And now she was back in his bed. I swallowed hard. If Rachel was playing him the way she had played me, I couldn't let it happen. I stepped out of the car, my legs shaky as I made my way to the front door. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. Then footsteps. The door swung open. And there she was. Rachel. She looked perfect. Effortlessly beautiful, her dark hair swept to one side. Dressed in one of the silk robes Nathan had bought for me. I clenched my jaw. Her lips curled into a slow smile. Lauren, she said, tilting her head. What a surprise. I pushed past her before she could stop me, stepping into the house. It still smelled like him. Nathan was standing near the staircase, his expression unreadable. Lauren, he said flatly. Why are you here? My chest tightened. We need to talk. His eyes flickered to Rachel, then back to me. There's nothing left to talk about. Yes, there is, I said, my voice sharp. I turned to Rachel, my pulse pounding. Tell him. She smiled. Tell him what? I took a step closer, my body trembling with rage. Tell him what you're really doing here, Rachel. Tell him why you came back after all these years. Nathan frowned. Lauren, you need to leave. I ignored him. She's playing you, Nathan. The same way she played me. The same way she played you before. Don't you see it? Rachel let out a soft laugh. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured, shaking her head. You still don't get it, do you? I narrowed my eyes. What the hell are you talking about? She stepped forward, lowering her voice to a whisper. I never left him, Lauren. My stomach dropped. Nathan stiffened beside her, his face hardening. Rachel smiled. You were the other woman. Not me. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. No, that's not possible. I shook my head violently. You're lying. Rachel arched an eyebrow. Am I? I turned to Nathan, my hands shaking. Tell me she's lying. He didn't say a word. A cold, sick feeling spread through me. Rachel let out a soft sigh, as if she actually pitied me. Oh, Lauren, she murmured. You really thought you won back then, didn't you? I swallowed hard. Do you want to know the truth? She continued, her voice gentle, almost mocking. Nathan and I never really broke up. We just paused. And you? She smiled. You were the perfect distraction. I felt like I was going to throw up. I turned to Nathan, my vision blurring. Is that true? Still he said nothing. Tears burned in my eyes. Nathan, say something. Finally he spoke. It doesn't matter, he said coldly. Not anymore. Rachel's lips curled into a satisfied smile. I shook my head, stumbling back toward the door. No, this can't be happening. Nathan didn't move. He just watched me. Like I was nothing. Like I had never been anything. Rachel stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. Now do you understand, Lauren? I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from this nightmare. But when I opened them, Rachel was still smiling. Nathan was still silent. And I was still alone. I couldn't breathe. The walls of my life, my marriage, my affair, my entire existence had been collapsing for days, but now it was nothing but ruins. Nathan had known. He had always known. Rachel had never really left him. And I had been the fool in the middle, playing a game I never even understood. Rachel took a slow step toward me, her silk robe barely shifting with her movements. She didn't need to say anything else. Her presence alone was enough. She had won. And I had lost. But I wasn't going down quietly. I turned to Nathan, my hands clenched into fists. You used me. His jaw tightened. You used me first. I let out a shaky breath, my entire body trembling. Did you ever love me? Nathan was silent for a moment too long. And that was my answer. Tears burned behind my eyes. I hated them. I hated that I still cared, that some stupid part of me still wanted him to say yes. But he didn't. He wouldn't. Rachel tilted her head, her lips curling into something smug and victorious. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured, mocking me with the same words I had once used to gloat over her. You were never more than a placeholder. I inhaled sharply, swallowing the thick lump in my throat. My entire world, everything I had built, everything I had fought for was gone. My marriage. My affair. Even the baby growing inside me. A child that would never have the family I once imagined for it. I had nothing left to lose. So I did what I did best. I lied. I exhaled, smoothing my hands down my coat, schooling my face into something unreadable. Well, I said, forcing my voice to steady. I hope you two are happy. Nathan's expression didn't change, but Rachel smirked. I turned toward the door, gripping the handle. Then just as I was about to walk out, I paused. You know, I murmured, keeping my back to them, I should probably mention something. Silence. I turned my head just enough to see them both in my peripheral vision. The baby, I said, tilting my chin up. It might not be Tyler's. Rachel frowned. What? I turned fully now, my heart pounding but my expression calm. Nathan's face was unreadable, but I saw the flicker in his eyes, uncertainty. I shrugged. I was sleeping with both of them, wasn't I? Tyler and Nathan. So, who's to say whose baby this really is? Nathan's entire body tensed. I had him. Rachel's smirk faltered, her fingers curling into the silk of her robe. You're lying, she hissed. I smiled. Am I? Nathan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. No, he muttered, but I could see the doubt creeping in. Good. Rachel turned to him, her voice sharp. You had a vasectomy. Nathan said nothing. Because he wasn't sure. because even he had to be wondering what if. I let the silence stretch between us, let it fester in Rachel's mind, let it crawl under her skin like poison. And then I delivered the final blow. "Better hope you didn't take me back too soon," I whispered, stepping closer. "Because if this baby is yours, Rachel." I leaned in, my lips curling. "You'll be raising mine." Rachel paled. Nathan's fists clenched at his sides. And that was enough for me. I turned and walked out of the house without another word. I didn't need to win. I just needed to make sure they lost too. I climbed into my car, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I had nothing. But neither did they. Nathan would never be sure. Rachel would never be secure. And I would survive. I drove away, leaving the wreckage behind me. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time in days, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the only one who had lost everything. And that was enough.